I want to teach you some of my tricks to keep basil fresh so you can enjoy it all winter long. If you're just meeting me, my name is 𝐂𝐻𝐋𝐿 and this is the 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐊𝐿 Legacy, where I teach you how to keep produce fresh for weeks. And one of the things I love is be able to take things during harvest time and preserve them all winter long. Now, of course, it is lovely to have a fresh basil plant. I like to keep them in pots so I can move them into the house if I need to, if the weather is really cold for us. And that way we can have fresh basil we can pick during the summertime, but it is also really great to have it during the winter time. And I have two different ways that I like to preserve them. I'm going to teach you two different methods of storing your basil. One is packed in oil, and you can keep this in your refrigerator all winter long and use it whenever you need it. And the other way is to freeze it without it turning black. But right as you're getting a fresh basil from the store or out in your garden, you want to make sure that you wash it in the vinegar wash. We do this just like we do with any of the other herbs. It is 1/4 cup of distilled white vinegar to 10 cups of water, and you soak that for 2 minutes. Now, basil, you want to be very gentle with it because it can bruise really easily and then it will turn black. But after you wash it for the 2 minutes, you're going to rinse it off and lay it out on a towel to dry until it is bone dry. Normally that takes around 2 to 3 hours, even in the summertime, to dry a bunch of basil. And you want to flip it as it's drying around the halfway mark. So this time of year, we can get big gallon-sized bags of basil from our farmer's market for $4. And that is what I did. I was able to get a whole bunch of cut basil, and most of the time those do have the longer stems on them. So those, after I washed them, I was able to pick out the ones that had the longer stems, and I took a knife and cut off 1/4 inch off of the bottom of the stem. That will open up the vascular system of the plant, and it will be able to continue to suck some water up. You want to make sure that you're using filtered water when you're doing this, because tap water has chlorine in it and it won't keep the plant alive. Now, basil can either sit out on your countertop for a couple days, or it can go in your refrigerator. Just make sure that you don't have a cold spot in your refrigerator. I normally like to keep mine between the two shelves, and it seems like that is the best place for me to keep it. Or you can keep it on the countertop. You just want to make sure that you're replacing that water every few days. And the ones that are on your countertop, you might see that they start to propagate some roots at the bottom. So you can actually make your own basil plants if you want to try to grow more basil. Basil won't last as long as cilantro and parsley does in the refrigerator like this, but it will last for at least a week, and you'll get a chance to enjoy it before it starts to wilt. One of our favorite reasons to have basil in the summertime is to make 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐿 skewers, and we love doing this not only with tomatoes but with peaches and nectarines. So it's a great way to use up some of your fresh basil also. And we have a lemon honey basil vinaigrette dressing that you should check out. We will link that in the description. So normally I do this in a quart-sized jar, but for today I'm just going to do a pint-sized jar and teach you how to pack the basil in oil. So we're going to start with just a little bit of oil at the very bottom of this. I'm using avocado oil in here, and then a pinch of salt goes in between the layers. So you want to make sure that you're using a clean salt, so either Himalayan salt or a sea salt is best whenever you're doing a preservation kind of project like this. I have olive oil here. I'm just going to put a little layer right at the bottom of my jar. So you're just going to put a little bit of olive oil at the bottom and then a little pinch of salt, and then you're going to put a layer or two of the basil, and then you do it again. So you just layer it all the way up the jar, and then this will stay in your refrigerator for the entire year, and it's perfect to pull out those leaves and be able to add it to recipes, but also to use this basil infused oil now to use in recipes. I just have to say how amazing it smells in here right now with all the basil. So it smells so good. But I picked off the leaves off the stems, and these leaves are right here from this jar, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. When you're doing this, you want to just pinch it off with your nail and do it really gently, because they will bruise really easily. So you try not to crush the leaves at all, because anywhere it bends really hard, it will get a black line on it and will start to oxidize. So just try to make those really quick snips, either with your fingernails or with a pair of scissors, however you want to do it. And then people are gonna say something about my fingernails. I wash my hands like 15 times while I'm doing these videos. So you can do it either way, however you want to, but pinch them off really easily or snip them. And then you're going to put them into the glass jar. Now I did have a couple leaves right here that did get wet into the water. I have these over to the side. I want to make sure those dry before they go into the oil. So I'll probably put those on top or make sure that they're all the way dry first. And then I have this pile over here of the stems. I'm gonna put these separately into just a bag into the freezer. And these you can add to different recipes that you're going to use an immersion blender and blend up. So if I'm making pasta sauce and want to add some really flavorful stems to that, I can totally do that and blend it up or pick out the larger stems at the end of the cooking time and you get all of that flavor. So there is no waste here. So I did say that I put a pinch of salt in between the layers. That is actually a measurement. It's 1/16 of a teaspoon. So about a teaspoon of salt will go into this entire jar. If I'm doing a quart-sized jar, I normally use a tablespoon for the entire quart. So, and there's no measurements to the oil. You just want to make sure the basil stays underneath the oil level. So while I'm doing this, I'm putting a little bit of oil, then the basil, a little bit of salt, and layering this in there. I'm also kind of pushing it down to make sure that the oil gets between all of the layers. So you want to make sure that you're gently pushing it down. Again, I'm not trying to crush it. I just want to make sure that the oil is getting everywhere. Normally I would fill this up almost to the very top of the jar, but we're going to go to the next process before I do that. And I want to make sure I have enough leaves here so I can show how to do the other way that I store them. I am going to put a fermentation weight at the top, and that will make sure that the leaves are pushed down underneath the oil, because when you put it in the refrigerator, it will solidify. So then I can just take that weight off and be able to use it for other things. But right at the beginning, in the first 24 hours, I want to make sure that those leaves are all under that oil line. I'm going to store this in the refrigerator in a glass jar with a metal lid, and it will stay fresh in the refrigerator for over a year. So it will get me all the way until harvest season next year to be able to use this. And none of this oil is going to go to waste because I am going to add it to different recipes and salad dressings. The other way I like to preserve basil is by freezing it, and I'm going to teach you a couple little tricks to make sure that it stays vibrant. But this one doesn't have to be packed in oil like some people think. So you can put it in ice cube trays with oil if you want to, but this is a way to preserve it without using as much oil. Now you can do this in a bowl, but I kind of like just doing it on my cutting board because it seasons my cutting board also. I am going to spread out these leaves and then drizzle some oil on top of it and just try to get the oil gently on both sides of it, and then I'm going to put these into a bag. I actually started this project last night when I washed the basil, and then I put a little bit in the freezer last night so I could show it to you and show you what it looks like after it's been in the freezer. But it keeps the vibrant color when you pack it. It's not really packed, when you cover it in oil, and then that way you can just break off a little bit and add it to recipes whenever you like. So if you keep it a pretty thin layer, it's really easy to break off. And since I just started this last night, I'm going to just add these leaves to the same bag. But if I was doing this at different times in the harvest, then I would start a new bag. I filled up this bag here, and then it's closed about 3/4 of the way. I'm just going to push all of the air out of it and then finish sealing it up all of the way. And then I'm going to put this into the freezer, and we can use this all through the winter time. So I hope you're able to save a little bit of your basil harvest or get some basil right now during the summertime and use it to make pesto and add to recipes all year long. If you're brand new to my channel, make sure that you're checking out our Zero Waste Produce Guide, where we have 75 fruits and vegetables, A to Z in this book, and all of the ways that you can preserve it to keep it fresh for months. This is linked in the description for you to find it really easily, and hit that subscribe button. I teach videos on all kinds of different methods to save money on groceries, and we would love to have you join our channel.